أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. तर्जुमा, तुम फरमाओ इन हड्डियों को वो जिंदा करेगा जिसने पहली बार उन्हें बनाया, और वो हर पैदाइश को जानने वाला है। जिसने तुम्हारे लिए सब्ज दरख्त से आग पैदा की, तो भी तुम उससे आग जलाते हो। और क्या जिसने आसमान और जमीन बनाए, वो इस बात पर कादिर नहीं कि उन जैसे और पैदा कर दे? क्यों नहीं, और वही बड़ा पैदा करने वाला, सब कुछ जानने वाला है। सरकल्लाहुल अज़ीम।
सदकल्लाहुल अज़ीम। ठीक है, आज का सेशन शुरू करते हैं। आज जो है इम्पोर्टेंट पे यूएक्स एंड मकसद ये है कि आप प्रोडक्ट जो बनाते हैं उसको आसान भी करना है कि आपका जो कस्टमर है, आपका यूजर है प्रोडक्ट का, वो आराम से इजीली इस्तेमाल कर सके, इंट्यूटिवली समझ सके। बल्कि अगर सही डिजाइन हो तो की भी जरूरत नहीं होनी कि भी कैसे इस्तेमाल करना है प्रोडक्ट, कैसे करना है, क्या चीजें कंसिडरेशन करनी है, उसके लिए हम शहजाद सलीम साहब मौजूद हैं। पहले मैं शहजाद साहब को कहूँगा अपना तो इंट्रोडक्शन दें और उसके बाद पूरे सब्जेक्ट के बारे में हमें बताएं, ताकि इसके हम ज्यादा जो है वो इस वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट को जो है ना वो फॉलो कर सके अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स बना। शहजाद प्लीज।
ठीक है, थैंक यू अनवर साहब एंड थैंक यू वेरी मच। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। एज पर introduction, so I belong to Lahore, Pakistan. So 20 plus years ago came as a student to USA, so, and after that did my masters and working for different companies, and now I'm working as a technology director for the US Bank, and for last 8-10 years. So manage teams from product to development and testing, all those areas. That's the area I manage in that US Bank. And that particular topic, as Anwar Khan said, that UI UX, that's very interesting but very important to me when it comes to the product development. And so that's what we'll be talking about, introduction, and then we'll drill in based on the interest and the questions. So that's where I will start. So let me start with the presentation. Before I start, anybody have any question? Okay, so let me share my screen and then we will go from there. Okay, so today our topic will be UX UI 101. What does that mean? What is UI? What is UX? And how do they differ? How do they resemble? And how we can get better use for that part. Okay, so there will be on some slides, it will be some text, and some will have a visuals too. So some text part I might skim through, I might summary, but if there is a question you can ask. And the goal perspective, as I mentioned, we will be looking in one is what is UX, which is user experience and user interface, and walk through what are design process, common concepts, and at the end of the day, objective is that you know more about UX and software, or basically any product development perspective. So as per for that part, while I'm presenting, I'm in a presentation mode, might not be able to see your questions, but I will be okay to move back if you have any question afterwards, even if I went through the slides, so that we can cover later on that perspective. Okay. So So what is UI and what is UX from that perspective? So, and again, one thing to clarify on that part, many things, UX applies to every single product, irrespective of digital, but mostly today we will be trying to cover digital footprint, but we will be able to relate to that whether it is digital or non-digital. But today's focus will be more on a digital side, but we will be touch base a little bit non-digital side also. So when it comes to a user interface, is that okay? That means that the screen, what you see that, or your user will be look at it, the elements part of it, those grids, buttons, and the color and the platform basically is that whether it is a phone or the laptop, all those things, that is basically a user interface. And user experience is that the experience they got through they clicked, they went from one point to the other, and all those environments they went through, that is basically called the user experience. So basically, if I in simple terms, if I say that when you go to a shop, the presentation layer for that part is that how good it is looking, how beautifully they have organized, all those part comes into UI. But whether you were whatever you were looking, were you able to find that thing easily? It was presented to you in a form which was helpful for you to use. All those things comes under user experience. How was your interaction with the example? In that case, if suppose I'm using the example of a shop, how was your interaction with the moving along the aisles to find something, to pick something, or a visual part is that what you were looking for, it was easy. In the same way, how was your experience with the shopkeeper? His interaction, was he helpful? All those comes under the user experience part. And then the third part basically is that if I look that in reality, if you look, UX is a bigger umbrella. And then in order to do that, many times there is something called user research. We will not go deep into it, but time to time I will be touching what does that user research mean. Is that when you are building something, how do you know that people will like it? What will be their reaction? All those things are research. And most of the time, how do you get research? Multiple avenue. You do get some data historically, how things have worked, depending if that data doesn't change, or you are interview people, or you create a mock-up. If that kind of thing does not exist, you let people use it, and after that people give you a feedback, and then you guys go from there. That is the user research part. So in a high level, I wanted to see that what is UI, UX, and then a little bit touch of user research, because this term we will be using a lot. Okay, so what makes UI good? So when I say that UI mean a presentation, so when I say that UI as a digital terms, when you say that a good UI, what is that part? Easy to understand, you were looking for something, and then it was very clear and easy to use, that's where Apple got popularity, because it is UI, and again, it is not only UI, UX too, and clear, informative. And if there are error message, somebody is using your website and it is clear and informative what they're looking for, and if there is error and it was explicitly that you did not submitted this particular information, or you did not click that, and all those things are a good user UI. And then same thing is that if website is taking too long on that part, that is debatable whether it is UI or UX. But normally is that this is the overall is that you wanted to buy something, you went there, you found something very quickly, you were able to load in a shopping cart, and you were able to check out. That is overall, people say UI is a good experience, but under the hood it is a hand in hand, and we will talk about it. What does that really mean? And by the way, if you have a question, feel free.
बल्कि एक कमेंट भी कहूंगा कि इसमें जो exactly ई कॉमर्स की एग्जांपल जो है, Amazon, one of the main reasons Amazon succeeded, one of the most important reason Amazon succeeded was they introduced the one-click buy option. That made it so easy that if you like the product and you just click one single click and you are able to complete a purchase. And a lot of people were on their mobile. They didn't want to go through too many steps, and it became much easier for people to make a purchase. So So making it and with the minimal steps required to get the job done is so important.
Yep. And just to add what Anwar Sahab was saying, that basically is that for those who are not familiar with that part, is that Amazon, what they did is that each time you come in, you need to select that I want to ship to this particular address. I want to use this particular credit card to buy this product, and each time if you have to do that, why not the frequent buyers or people who are interested to make those things default, that if that they like something, I like the shoes, and right there is an option that okay, one click buy. It means that all of those default things which I have selected, my shipping address, my payment address, and whatever my preferences were, I clicked on it and it used those, and I did not have to go through type in my address or select or particular all those things. So that was a one good example of a UI/UX perspective. So UI part is that having that button available right there, and UX is that a good experience, all those things defaulted. So that is a good example of that perspective. Thank you for chiming in. Okay. And then this is a little bit verbiage part. Some of those I already covered, but I will be skimmed through. But I can share afterwards. You guys can use that. So UX design is the application isn't just a matter of content. Same thing that it is not just the contents that you have. Google have it, Amazon have it, but it is matter of use also. The intention. Why do you want to build your application or a website or a product? Is that your main intention is that people should be using it, and the intention design must be intuitive, relevant, and pleasant to navigate. So that is on that perspective, the design methodology which answer the requirement is called UX design. And when people say that what is UX design, it means that we will go through that the methodology which gets used to cover all those things, that okay, how things will be easier, how things will be more effective, how things can be more useful, all those basically in order to get answer to all those questions. That process or basically your methodology called the UX design. Okay, so basically UX design the refers is the user experience. We talked 2 or 3 example, that Amazon part, or you go to shopkeeper, all those things is the basically documentation of that whole process is the basically is that, and then evaluating it and streamlining it. That is basically a UX design. We will touch based a little more in detail on that perspective. Okay, so it is meant to be, and again when we are doing it, same thing could be different, that when you are designing for mobile, it needed to be very intuitive, very quick, because people are screen is small, and people want to move on pretty quick. And for the other application or a website could be same thing, could be a little more, people want to spend a little more time, readable, all those things perspective. So that at the end of the day, UX design is a user centric. When I will use that term a lot, when we will see what does user mean. And user mean the person who will be beneficiary of that product, a person who will be using that application, a person who will navigate your product. That is the person user mean here. Okay. And very last point is very important here, is that UX design is a subject area. So basically, aim is to making user-friendly interface and offer a high-quality user experience. So if we look at UX and UI, we use the word interchangeably, but when we come that UX design, it does cover UI, and that is next part, is that on that part, the best content in the world will fail if it is poorly designed. You can have a best of everything, but user experience is that user perspective, it's not fulfilling the user needs, it will fail. And it is all about the user experience. That is the major objective. If you say that what is UX design in layman term, it means that doing some actions and some modifications in your product. Your product could be website, your all those things to make a user experience. You can say that improved user experience. User experience means that he had a whatever he intend to do, he was able to find, act, and move on quickly on that perspective. So any question on this part? I know it's heavy on text, but you guys can read it through, and afterwards, if follow-up session or question will be needed, we can do that part too. Okay, so in that part is that continuity or what we were just talking about is that UI and UX perspective.
So,
what is
शिराज एक कमेंट में है कि आप एग्जांपल्स भी दिखाएंगे कि कैसे UX design
yes, there will be examples. Yes, there is a best practices.
So patience here slide ठीक है.
Yep.
Please continue.
So there will be best practices also and some example for UI and UX part. Okay. So, and by the way, Zad, for a time check, you can let me know if I need to hurry or if I'm doing okay on that.
No, you're doing well, so please continue.
Okay. Sure. And the UI part, people say that, what is UI? The difference part, UI focuses on the user sees when faced with the product or a service. Like a shop, for example, you go to a shop, how organized it is, how looking, how inviting, all those is UI, And the UX part on the other side is why, what, and how. What does that mean? Why user will get motivated? What value user will get? By the way, I'm using user. It means that the person who will be intended, for that service too. Okay, and what will be the user perception on that part? And then same way, why part is the what motivating, and the what part is the what is the use of that for that particular user, or what are the functionalities he will be getting on that part. And then the how part is often is that where UI is also, it's not different, it's same, is the usability part, and aesthetics from that perspective is that. So UI will be giving you that, you went into a shop and then it is looking inviting, very clean, organized. That is a UI, and most probably they have organized that way by having the user experience. And user experience could mean that they say that particular shop is very inviting, a lot of people go there because this is very organized, that is learning from the others. Or could be they talk to 100 people, they say that if you design or pack your product or do your UI or your website that way, it will be more inviting, something on those nature. So this particular, if you look that UI is visual design, colors, graphic design, layout, and typography is that, whether you are writing in a bold or a lowercase, uppercase, all those things are under UI. And UX is, as I mentioned, interactive design, wireframes, and that is basically a design perspective, how to get there. And information architect, what information architect is that, how did you categorize all the information, whatever you had on that, your particular, often type you go shopping, I'm using that e-commerce example is that if people have a mix match, you are planning to buy shoes, but you are seeing that it is not properly organized, not only shoes, other dresses, all in that particular category. Those are all categorization in a proper way of whatever that information or data is, also part of information architecture, like how people navigate, what category they belong to. And then next part is a user research. As I mentioned that 100 people go over there, you might have seen that people do the surveys, paid surveys, and all those things, your opinions, they take it and they get that information and they design a UX experience. Same thing to many different scenarios also, what happens, what if scenarios, that what if you take this route, how long it will take you to get there, and what if you take this particular. So all those user experiences, this is UX and UI. So let me take a pause. High level, anybody have a what is UX UI question part? Okay. Okay, so here is one example part. This is I wanted to start with that part basically is UI and UX. You all have seen that. If people look at is that just a UI perspective, I will, the text is there too. But if you really look that, if we say that ketchup bottle on the left is very nice quality interface, looks like a bottle, and everything is practical use, but again looking beautiful, and it is a user interface. We say that a ketchup bottle, it looks like a bottle, everything is good. But we saw that the company came in and they looked at how people use it. They say that whenever they use it, they make it upside down. There are chances of spillover, and then often if it is very little left in the bottom, they have to shake it up, and it takes time. And what did they do? That very interesting example is that somebody came up with that user experience and all those things. They made the bottle, just made it upside down, and what did it do? It served both purpose, that it is now practical, they don't need to bring it upside down, and it is always ready to be come out because being upside down. So that is a very interesting example from that part, is that UI and a UX. But on a same thing, when we are talking differences, UI is part in both. Look that the otherwise also it is nicely looking, and UI is part in both. UI have a integral part in the bottle on the left as well as the on the right. So UI is in this part, is that when it comes to their appearance, both bottles are examples of UI. So if I take the UX part out, both bottles are very classic example of a UI, but one is more focused in how we to make it efficient, enjoyable experience. So let me take a pause. Is that any question coming out from that? This particular example is giving both, the contrast of UI and UX and resemblance also.
So raise your hand if you have a question. This is good to ask question.
And
No
Izar,
question
I'm
so
on
far.
the presentation mode, so if there is a question, if you can ask them to speak up, so that I'll go from there.
All right, sir. Usually हमारा after this presentation Q&A session होता है, तो during that session chat से भी हम question लेते हैं और one by one जो hand raise कर देते हैं, orally भी हम question को ले लेते हैं.
Take. The other way I was saying that that's a very good to know. But if there is anything coming up, do speak up, and we'll go from there. Okay. And this is another thing, is that UI and UX work.
Simply continue. वो सारों ये ना वो कर रहे थे. कोई बात नहीं.
ठीक है. And this is another example as UX and UI, working together perspective, is that, I don't know how many, but if you experience on the airport part, there is now kiosk machines, people wanted to print out their boarding passes, all those things. The UI is, there is a machine that is a part of user interface, and then how good they are able to navigate. That is, basically you can look at that. The overall experience perspective is that you have seen that directions, that this is the gates, arrows and all. That is telling the UI part, how good it is looking, the categorization of the gates, how it is showed. But the practical part is that if those able to, how to get to that, how to navigate that, all those are examples of a UX. How was your experience when you come in, you wanted to print your boarding pass. Once you are done from that part, you wanted to get to the gate and all those things, is that it is telling that where is the rest area, where is the food to eat. All those are UI is enabling that, and that navigation and the way it is. So it is also UI and UX, is that we are talking contrast. And then basically if I put the big umbrella, UI is, in my mind, again, some people might differ, in my mind, UI is part of a UX design process. So overall, this is another example, is that UI is looking good, and the same way is the practical part. If the practical part is not that great, UI doesn't matter how good it is, eventually it will die down, and vice versa. Okay.
So Shahzad, considering पाकिस्तान में कियोस्क इतने ज़्यादा कॉमन नहीं है, लेकिन इसका एग्जाम्पल मैकडोनल्ड में that's a very good example. वहाँ पे कियोस्क अब लोग इस्तेमाल करने देखा है, बनिस्बत शुरू में जब आया था, जबकि यूआई और यूजर एक्सपीरियंस इतना इंट्यूटिव नहीं था, इतना आसान नहीं था, तो लोग इस्तेमाल नहीं करते थे. अब ज्यादा इस्तेमाल करते हैं. तो इसका बड़ा सिंपल सा एग्जाम्पल है कि वो तक आप इजी नहीं बनाएंगे यूजर्स के लिए, कंफर्ट बनाएंगे उनको इस्तेमाल करना, उनको नेविगेट करना, क्या भी जो भी प्रोडक्ट वो खरीदना चाह रहे हैं, कोई भी फूड खरीदना चाह रहे हैं मैकडोनल्ड में, तो वो इस्तेमाल नहीं करें. तो ऐसे ही हुआ, फिर मैकडोनल्ड ने उन्होंने रिवाइज किया, बार बार रिवाइज किया अपने यूआई एक्सपीरियंस को और यूएस का एक्सपीरियंस को वगैरह को जो है, और अब जो है वो ज्यादातर अब कई आपको में से कईयों ने कई दफा ऑर्डर भी किया होगा मैकडोनल्ड में कियोस्क से, बजाय इसके कि आप लाइन में खड़े होके किसी ह्यूमन से ऑर्डर करें.
बिल्कुल. और दिस इज व्हाट इट इज. मैनी ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट्स इसी तरह कंपनियों ने डिफरेंट एरिया के अंदर लॉन्च की. सपोज दोस वर वेरी सक्सेसफुल इन यूएसए, दे लॉन्च्ड into different part, but they were not as successful until they went through a lot more UI. If literacy rate is different, they made it a visual, as well as the process in also, like what people normally visualize and go from there. So that is basically is that every single system, that's where it says the future UX becoming a part of every system design. And by the way, it is irrelevant we're using, or today focus is on the digital, but even non-digital also. If user experience is bad, is basically is that normally people will prefer not to use that service, or whatever you can say that. Okay.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे कमेंट है यसर साहब ने लिखा है, it says if right image has a pouch option, then it of UX. Can you understand the comment, Shahzad?
Sorry, you cut. Can you say that one more time, please?
अब चैट में जरा सी कमेंट में, उसमें साहब ने लिखा है, if right image has a pouch option, then it would be a good example of UX.
So I'm not seeing contents, but maybe I will get back to that part. Yep. Okay.
बस आपको बाद में बताइएगा, समझाइएगा आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं.
ठीक.
Difficult.
ठीक. Okay, so let me go back into that mode. Okay. So this is another, basically I'm trying to tell, that these terms are getting used interchangeably, but in the same time is that UI, UX, if if I'm able to tell you after this session, you're able to answer that what is UI, what is UX, and how to use it interchangeably. So that's the objective for that part. And that's where the same thing is that it is telling on that, if you guys can read through, but but I will say that summary for that is that if suppose it is a website could be loaded with unique, helpful content organized in a logical, intuitive way. That is basically is that, but if it looks dated, you can't easily figure out how to move between screens or scroll through options. You are likely to click away from that side. So basically is that there is typo 2. So same thing what we are saying is that if you have a best UI, bad UX, people will not be, you might be able to get them one time, two time, but they will not be staying for longer perspective. And the same way too, you have a really good user experience, your product is great, it is able to do whatever it need to be, but presentation is not good, you might not be able to get enough traffic to be sustaining your business on that part. And a very example is that, day to day that you might often have seen that often type eye-catching is that something is really nicely packaged. So it might not be, and oftentimes people think that if it is a really nice package and all those things, it means that's expensive, So from that part, think that way is that some people have and the other part is true. 99% expensive products are, their UI is much better than the other ones because people had figured it out how things appeal. So if you are planning to create a product and which is you want it to be effective and people buy, whether it's a website or a other product. It needed to be UI UX. That should be your focus also on that part. It should not be afterthought that okay, now you have made a product, it's not getting sold, and then basically is that what is the reason is an appearance, because oftentimes people don't come back in the digital side on that. Okay, so this is also, you guys can read through what is UI, what is UIF, so in bottom line for that is that UI and UX, you need both in order to be successful for your launching of your product, whether website or others. Okay. Okay, and so another is that same continuity. We covered that those points already. UX and UI is an emerging field, and look at that part. As I said, that example is that the Apple came in, and there's all of their products. The major their success, they always said that the simplicity of use. Even the what they are trying to tell on the left part, those kids, they didn't need to run, read. They are not, but they were able to do some activities based on that, whether it is a touch or a slide, all those things. So UX and UI, that is a major, basically a success story for those gadgets which are in the kids or the teens on that perspective they are using on that part.
यानी दूसरे लफ्ज़ों में कह रहे हैं कि इवन कुछ महीने का बच्चा भी इस्तेमाल कर पा रहा है, वो इतना आसान बना देगा यूआई की वजह से, और ये एक्सपीरियंस भी है.
Bilkul, that's why I can say that, on that, many of those things you can see that many people, they are not able to read, but they're able to do the complete transaction if they have to, if their UI is and UX is improved on that part. Or the other part, UX and UI should improve how humans interact with computers or complex systems. And the same way is that, if, Anwar Sahab, you might be able to relate that AS400 or other things which used to have a green screen or an old computer, it was the computer operators was the term, or a developer who were able to use it. But now the much more complicated or improved systems, it is being used by the people who might not be formally educated in computers, but they are able to perform all those activities.
एक सवाल है, how does UI UX relate to a proof of concept or a prototype of a product?
Good question, and we will tackle that in subsequent slides. Okay, so another thing is that we also touched on that part. A good UX UI is not just a UX and UI designers. It doesn't mean that you will invite the basically interior designer if you are designing a shop or only the designer. It is UX UI is everybody. Is the major is the user. Anyone can be part of the methodology, because when we'll touch base methodology a little bit, and the user experience, basically what is user experience? A discipline. That discipline means that it will need to be whatever that actions are, it is a one way, and that is a generic. So many user could be different, but when we have a biggest one of the big pool, you will see that it is a pretty much similarities on that part. And user experience is a process that people do one activity to that, and that's where we will be talking. But again, same thing is a small changes, whether it is a UI or UX, can have a very big impact. You might feel that any small thing somebody improved, and that whole process became day-night difference. So that's again a lot more to cover, and I think 20 more minutes. So I'll just be taking a pace, but these are something you guys can read through, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is the process part, user-centered design. It was our initial stage 2. We are coming to a UX design part. What does that really mean? It means that, like a user in the center, user-centered design, user is the one, and then analyze, design, implement, validate, and we will be coming down to is that, okay, when we say the user, so user mean anything. Suppose if I'm making a website for selling something, my user is a person who is coming to buy that particular whatever I'm selling. If I'm giving a service, a user is a person who will be a beneficiary or who will be using that particular service. So from that part, that is term a user mean. It could be a different, but it is specific I'm talking to. And then that is where we talked a little bit, is that the user's part is that user in the middle, and that something we talked about, the design part, is that first thing starts with a plan. You need to plan what you're trying to do, and again, we'll go a little more detail in those slides also. So research, design, adapt, and measure. And what does that mean? It means that research means that you will be saying that, okay, if I'm selling the website, is that in that particular areas, or let me take it easy. If I want to make a shop, I'm seeing that I'm planning to open a gas station in this particular intersection. How many cars pass from this area? How big is the city from that part? Is that city going to grow? And is there how many users are there? Are there people who are in that area? There is dirt roads and people use carts and cycles, and if I open a gas station, it means that that's not a good place to be opening, unless I know that in future there is a much development plan. So all those parts are part of our research. And the same thing is that once I done my research, yes, it is a feasible, it will be a valuable, and this is how things will be. And then afterwards is the design part, that how should it be designed, how people will interact. They will come, the gate should be which side to be, entrance from this road is much easier, or the other side will be much more beneficial. So all those parts is the design. And then after that is the adapt part, is that I will once everything is done, I did that adaptability. I saw that everything is done as per my research, as per my design. And now I need to see that if my all the indicators which I captured, that if 300 cars pass by, 10% of those 30 should be stopping by, and if they come in, those 30 get to me for the gas or a petrol, we call it. 80% or 20% people are coming in to buy some stuff. So I'm measuring that part, and then I will be evaluating, is that could be there is not, I thought 3,000 car will be passing by daily, but it is only 300. So it means that is a validation on that part, some assumption. Same thing is that I thought 10% of those will be stopping by. Oh, it is actually 20%. Or I felt that, so all those things will be telling, and when people are coming in, what activity are they doing? All those part can be under the umbrella of research, but it is what is research, design, adapt, and then last part, what you did measure. And once you did the measure part, then you will be taking action that all what area do I need to modify, and that is means design and adapt, measure, and that could be recursive. You are continuously monitoring and checking, and that's what it is. But again, we will touch a little bit in detail also. Okay, so that is again, we said that the most important person is that in your product or your services is the user. And user means that don't think that oh, user should do that. Just put yourself, the phrase putting yourself in other person's shoes is that just pretend you are that person. And if that person, there are 5 ways, in the left example, if there are 5 ways to move from one location to the other, and if you are there, what is the human tendency? Your tendency will you be going straight? You will be taking right, 45 degree, just based on that particular junction. What will be you or a user, when you pretending you are a user, what will you do? A website, which have too many things to be clicked on a page, what will you think that normal, which is oftentimes, which is highlighted, which is in the center, people click, and then if you're expecting people to click different, but it means that it is not the case. That is what it means, that user-centered design, and additionally is defined the user. On the right is that user could be, it doesn't mean that who is your audience. That is what is very important, is that could be define what shoes they are wearing. What shoes here mean is that get the characteristics for that particular user, and even from that part is that, if that even qualified to be called a user on that part. And user could be all different. These are just an example. So you know who you are selling as your product or a service. So you know who is your audience and you can take actions accordingly. And then same thing is that when you're defining a users, like a age, gender, language, environment, platform, technology savviness, device, all those things are basically you are defining a user on that perspective, right? So that if somebody is that, okay, who will be a user of my platform, and that is mobile phone users, and what will be, many things is that what is the normally age group who will be this particular my services for audience to, is it a gender based, what language mostly it will be, all of those are also part of a UX design process. It is you are doing a research, you are defining a user. You should be, if you are not defining that well, and that is the UX UI is user centered approach. That is where, what does that mean? This is the first thing is that often mistakes people do is that they try to make it too generic, and that's where generic is okay, but your user who you are defining or picking, that should be at least more than 3/4, more than 75% things should be catered for that particular user. Rest could be everyone else. Okay. And then this is the same thing is also, I will, for the interest of time, I will skim through, but that you guys can read it. The first thing is that this is the UX design process. First, you need to understand the problem. They oftentimes they say that there is a phrase called, well begun is half done. So that if you have started right, basically you have done the halfway of that journey. So basically coming back to that part is how I'm relating to, if you are not able to understand the problem, and always whenever you are catering, whether it is a UI or a website or a shop or whatever service you are doing, at the end of the day you are trying to solve the problem for somebody wants to buy something while sitting at home, whether somebody is that you are starting the hospital or something, whatever, or you are creating a product, digital product, physical product. At the end of the day, same core objective from a user perspective is you are solving a problem which he had. And this is the design process. The question somebody asked earlier, details are there, but I will just skim through quickly. Understand the problem, what is the problem, and know organization objective. And the organization objectives are, you want to increase the user on your website. You are trying to make the money from that particular website. Some websites are just information only, and then we go through from that and the rigorous other things. But you need to know what is the user's problem and what is your objective. That is the understanding part. That should be very clear. Being an entrepreneur, I've been in there, created multiple products on that part. And oftentimes, most of the people, they fail to define the very first step, understanding the real problem, what they are trying to solve.
Right. Shahzad, एक example आप जो इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो, banking app.
It is there.
पाकिस्तान में banking app हर कोई इस्तेमाल करता है, और आपके तो main responsibility है. You could use the example, basically the experience and the consideration that you guys went through to make your banking app highly acceptable by the users.
Yes, and by the way, in that text next, there is an example for that particular part too. And and that's a particular really good example on that part is that if people want to do bank and they know that okay, there is why people want to have their suppose let's say that they want to have on a web on their cell phone, why do they want to have the banking app? So they want to have for multiple is that they want to see their balance right away. They want to deposit a check away, or on those movement of money from one place to the other. So those 3 or 4. But if somebody says that somebody will be, there are many more activities people do on a financial industry, but that is normally not the focus of a UI. They know that when they are go the bigger one, they will go into in person and different. But though core, their user is normal person who want to do some activity, buy something, or they want to check the balance or do some on those lines. And if that is not fulfilling their purposes, that is oftentimes it fails. But again, that is the first part. You need to do the understanding what is the problem you are solving, whether a product or the service. Same thing. Then you need to do the research, user research. You should not be doing a research, like as I mentioned in earlier part, is that many products which are popular, which are successful in one geographical area, often failed into other areas, and that is the reason for that is the not doing enough research and go from that perspective. Like one example, I can say that I don't know how popular is Subway in Pakistan, but in USA, Subway is very popular, and they did not do enough research. Is that again in my mind is that here we use a lot more vegetarian and all. Over there, it was not. Again, could be other reasons too, but I feel that if they would have done the right research, they might not have opened those the franchises over there. So research, that is the second part. Target user, their problem, and then analyze. And analyze mean you created the response, you created all those things, and then you analyze based on that. And then the next part is that paper representation of your solution, whatever you're doing, that is what you are creating a sketch. You created that, okay, I will be creating a website, this will be the flow, and research, based on analyze, and then based on that sketch you created a prototype and mock-ups and solution, and that is what people used it, and then you realized is that, and you defined it, you modified it based on that actual prototype, and then tested it, and that's the process we went through. But again, a lot more text on there, you guys can read through, and if there is question we can go through. I might be moving forward. Okay, so in this particular one, this is the actual defined process, and a simplified could be, first you need to plan it, design it, prototype it, and review it. And on same thing too, three UX UI processes, and who, what, where, and whatever I talked earlier, these are part of it. Is that first part is who, what, where, when, why. These are the all research part, as well as the plan part. These got covered in the step one. And then this is the iterative example. We will try, I will just go on that part. So somebody wanted to create this is a website. Trumpify basically is that what their objective was, create something experience. So this part they covered the some part of Trump, and after that they say that you upload your picture, put your friend or whoever you want to, and that is just a funny experience perspective. And that's where this text is the story. They defined, okay, who will be the users, how will they go through this, all what you are saying. This is the process that people will come on that screen, they will open up a app. So again, this is the user testing iterations, how people will be using. So this is all that I will not go through, but this is the example which you guys can go, which each tells the requirements, the process, and then who will be the users and all that part. And this is also the based on that. This is related to that particular example which you're going through. This is where the user story, define your user, follow what the user would go through, know their age, their language, their familiarity. Example, if I say that Trumpify, and if I launch in Japan, this might be a failure project, but here close to elections and everything, that is one of the best. You can say that app for short term, somebody brought it up and quickly, it's a business perspective. That was that, example on that part, but how did it work and go from there? This is a user flow wireless, wireframes, that how, this is how you should be defining your interaction diagrams. People come in, what will they do from here? They have three options to go. They go up, straight, and that. And if they go, what will be action? Is all those things. Everything the app and every page does. You don't want to find out something which is needed later. This is what is the wireframe you should be defining. All the pages are covered. Everything is there. This was that example. Sorry.
Nurullah. Nurullah यार तेरी की शाद की कसम
वो अच्छा है, वो एक्सेप्टेबल है।
About the good Landira Landiwi.
which is some of those apps which are useful for client. Yeah, if you just click on that part also, again, all those will be helpful for wireframes for you to from that part. But again, this particular example was one quick, which I will like from that part. This is the design. It will be look like that, whatever. So and that again, this is the the most important from that part is that iterations. Design, build, and test. And this is an ongoing cycle. Throughout this process, testing, you will have findings, bring them back to the design and requirements. This is the most important part. People think that once they're done, they need to keep it updated, keep up to date, whether, from that, how is the user trend, and go from there. Okay. And, this is also same example, proof of concept to actual. And, so this is another thing is that UI UX related. I say that the importance of familiarity. This particular example here is that we will be touching driving on the right side of the road. What is telling people are driving on the right side? Because what does that mean? The importance of familiarity in UI UX. So if people are used to see that a stop sign or a light sign, they know something is there. Is that basically saying that okay, this particular lights are bright on that side, it means this is the direction car is going, and that blurry is that. So basically here people are trying to tell that do not try to reinvent the wheel when you are doing UI UX. Try to use the familiar things for the where they are being used for. Like this example clearly telling that driving on the right and driving on the left part. Okay, so that this is what it is. And that if you need to use some example, this was one example where they're trying to say if there are already something built, use those to illustrate your problem and initiatives in your frameworks part. Okay. And then same thing is that this is a Samsung and Apple. They say that research what others are doing and borrow tastefully. You can see that they lined up some of those how those things are working. Again, some of those are copyright, but those generally on that part is that look what they are trying to tell here. Look your competitors. Look their success. What part is that, and see that if you can be. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, but the borrow tastefully. You just don't follow, copy it, but whatever making sense, add eventually into your product or a process perspective. And same thing again, the plan, research, design, adapt, and measure. Great design cannot save a bad product idea. Doesn't matter, how good is your design is, but bad product idea cannot, and great UX can be hindered by the bad design. You have a really good product, but you have a bad design, that product will fail. So bad UX or design can ruin a product. So basically, what we are saying is your idea could be brilliant, your design could be excellent. And by the way, at one time we were doing a research that lot more people buy, they add into cart, but often things stay in the cart. So project was to look into it, is that why people are leaving so many things in the cart and not doing the checkout. And then they say that oftentimes from a checkout page takes too long, or it asks too much information. So a lot more research into, and that was the, you can look into that perspective too. Idea is good, but not getting all to the end point. Basically user experience was the concern. Okay, so that is another one thing is that on the left, basically, this is a very human behavior, basically, which trying to tell you can have everything right lined up, but it could be a little, can be hiccups or opposite. So left side, if you say that it is a small mob kind of thing, somebody design idea, people thought that is everybody already doing that, the dusting part, who will be able to buy that? And it is, like if other things, not like that, but other mopping there as a some clothing part people were using, but it beat all the predictions. 100 million in 4 months for this product. It was just you can say that for dusting with the handle, somebody came up, and that what does they trying to tell that people felt that it is solve their problem. They were used to use a towel or something, for a cleanup. Now this is a really interesting idea. Came up with that handle and also beat the expectations. And same way on the right side, guitar groups were very popular at one time, but eventually, eventually nobody's it's not as popular. So basically what we are trying today, you can't put into spreadsheet how people are going to behave around a new product. Basically it is another term called disruptive. So when you are bringing a product, often you are solving a problem, but when you are bringing a product which is outside of the blue, it can go either way. So that's what it is. The Swiffer product came in, solved the problem, beautiful UI, UX. It is telling how to, that hand is telling how to use this particular part. Swiffer is that we're doing, and it was a hit. Again, UI, UX was part of it, but what is trying to tell in this particular slide is the human behavior, which is different. So here is I just take a 30-second on that part. Don't forget, always a human element in software design. Things change, that back in the days it could be a different style of pants and everything, but things are changing on that part. What does that mean? Older iOS, it was used to be that, eventually iOS 9, few things got changed. Look at that. Not every single thing is changed. That phone, this apparently stayed that way, but some other things, they change their look and feel from that part. But what it is basically trying to tell, if you have your product, your design, it is successful, but if you do not do anything about it, it will become outdated eventually. So continuous research, continued monitoring, and continually of optimization, that's the theme of this particular page. Okay, so that's one example of a bad UX UI design. So what happened is that this particular John Denver in 1997, he had a crash, and that the thing is that there was a fuel in one of the plane. There was at that time things were manual, so normally fuel goes into these wings, and they hit one of the wings. When they get empty, they use the lever inside to move the fuel from one wing to the other. But the normally better UX makes sense is that lever should have been on the front so people can change it. But bad thing was whoever designed it, they put that lever on the back of the left shoulder. So while in order to do that, he had to maneuver, he had to move back, and while flying, all those things were not as UX or user friendly. He got into that accident. So basically, what they're trying to tell is that the UX, could be deadly, or in this particular example, and that's where the lesson learned part is that the UX does mean that how to, again, how get used. People were normal using it, but when it is needed, that is one example of if it had been consideration of a better UX, they could have avoided that particular thing. Okay, so another thing is the for UI UX design part, always prioritize features and start small. You cannot. There is another phrase is the boiling the ocean. What does that mean? Is you're trying to do everything at one time. Instead, what you should be doing, always prioritize a feature. You create like Instagram. They created a product. It is only doing one thing and does it well, and eventually they will be adding a next feature. If they wait for their application to be perfect and have all the bells and whistles and features, it will never release. So that is the theme of that part, is that prioritize in your product a feature, like same thing in the shop part. Start with the basic what you want to, and then enhance on that part. And then gauge the reaction and user experience, and you will know that how good you are doing. That's the theme of that part, is that if you are planning to bring a product or any other website, look for that what is the bare minimum and a must feature, give it to that, engage the reaction and the experience, and add it up. So this is another best practices. Look at that. This is a website on the right and left. It is the same thing with the prioritize most important activities and elements. Less is more. Look at that. On the left, too many options. Like people are trying to figure it out, but prioritize, and that is a better UI and a UX. UI is that looking how beautiful. UX is that they made it simple of a user experience. They go one point to the other part. Okay. And the same thing too, best practice is always think about user, put yourself in shoes. I'm repeating again because that is the theme. Come back to the application like you know nothing and you are using it for the first time, And that is a more important thing is also because normally if I'm a builder, I will think that I know everything and I will build. Do not do that. That's a very, very, a trap. Think that way that what user will do, come back and, modify on that part. Okay. Another thing is that this is the summary of that. Don't assume you know everything. There are always things you will never know. Basically is that what it is trying that, again, it is coming back to user research, best practices, don't think don't think that you are building application for you or a product for you. Just think that who is the user, how will they use it, continue to do research and then go from that part, and you will be continuously learning because you being even though you are a subject matter expert, but this is a lot more ideas always come from the different when people use it. Okay. So that is, sorry if I fast forward in the end, but I wanted to stop by to take some questions also. So let me take that.